I was watching Comet ATLAS 3 through my telescope on the rooftop when I realized it was looking back at me. The city stretched far below, a blur of faded lights, but up here the night felt like a private room carved from the sky. My telescope pointed straight at the comet's icy core glowing above the skyline, its tail streaming like a silver banner against the dark. I adjusted the focus, expecting distortion. Instead, the light pulsed. Once. Then again. Intentional. A signal. I blinked hard and tried again. The glow sharpened, locking directly into my lens. I shifted the tripod a fraction. The comet recentered itself like it refused to be ignored. Cold wind pushed against my hoodie, but the sweat on my palms slicked the metal focusing ring. I knew I should step back. Instead, I leaned closer. The light intensified, narrowing into a single bright spear straight into my eye. My breath caught. I wasn't just observing, I was being noticed. The rooftop suddenly felt too quiet. Even the city noise dissolved, swallowed by the impossible connection stretching across space and landing right on me. I tried to convince myself this was just my imagination fed by late-night curiosity. Yet the comet's pulse matched my heartbeat like we had sensed without permission. Fear, fascination. It collided inside me until I could not tell them apart. This was no random rock drifting by Earth, it was aware. And it wanted me to know that. The wind pushed harder across the rooftop, snapping at my hoodie as if trying to pull me away from the telescope. The air smelled like rain that had not fallen, like something unfinished hanging above the city. I tightened my grip on the tripod, grounding myself against the sensation that the roof could tilt and drop me into the dark. I told myself to breathe, to remember the sky was just gas and space. Nothing up there should notice me, nothing should care. Yet the light kept pulsing, steady, purposeful, like a heartbeat syncing with mine. That connection crawled under my skin, electric and undeniable. I stepped back, letting the telescope settle into silence. The comet's glow softened for a moment, then brightened again as if reacting to my distance. As if it wanted me nearer. My phone buzzed. No messages. No calls. Just the screen blinking awake with a silent notification from an app I did not recognize. A black icon, no label. I swiped it away. It reappeared instantly. Cold pricked the back of my neck, sharper than the wind. I glanced at the building door, half expecting someone to step out and laugh at me for being afraid of starlight. The rooftop remained empty. Too empty. The world below carried on unaware, headlights gliding like insects under glass. I raised my eyes again, not through the telescope this time, but directly at the sky. The comet shouldn't be visible without magnification. Yet I saw it clear and sharp aligned perfectly above me. My pulse stumbled. I stepped to the left. The comet tracked me left. I stepped right. It followed. The night felt like it leaned forward with me, witnessing every tiny move. A memory flickered, out of place. My dad pointing at the stars when I was a kid, saying the universe was vast enough that something out there might look back someday. I used to hope he was right. I don't know if I still do. The silence pressed in, thick and observing. The world below disappeared behind the ringing in my ears. I swallowed hard, whispering the only question that made sense. What do you want? The comet pulsed once slow and deep like an answer. I leaned closer to the telescope again, unable to stop myself. The metal felt warmer this time, like it remembered my hands. The eyepiece flooded with white light as soon as my eye aligned with it, brighter than any star should be from Earth. The comet sharpened into impossible detail. Lines, patterns, shapes that almost made sense. My heartbeat kicked up. But the pulse in the sky was faster. The comet wasn't drifting, it was orienting, turning, facing me. I adjusted the focus ring a fraction. The image corrected itself instantly, keeping its blazing core dead center. I jerked away, heart hammering. The light dimmed, hesitant. I leaned back in. It brightened again. Certain, like we were learning each other's boundaries in real time. My phone buzzed again. The same black icon. This time it opened itself, revealing static that flickered into a diagram I didn't recognize. A grid. A symbol. Then it vanished before I could blink. The rooftop door creaked behind me. I spun around. Nothing. Just the wind breathing through metal hinges that suddenly felt alive. I wiped my palms on my jeans, trying to convince myself the cold was the reason my hands were shaking. My lungs pulled air too quickly, trying to keep up with adrenaline that had nowhere to go. I forced myself to look again, this time with my naked eyes. The comet seemed closer. Closer than physics allowed. Its tail arched like a spotlight aimed directly at me. A pressure built behind my sternum. Like something inside me was being tuned, not by my will, but by its call. My skin tingled, static crawling under the hoodie fabric. I whispered a single word before I realized I had spoken. "Hello?" The light pulsed twice. Hard enough that the reflections on the railings flickered like a reply. The thought cracked through me like lightning. I wasn't just observing the sky. The sky was communicating. The rooftop rails vibrated under my fingertips, a soft hum rising through the metal as if the city itself had begun to resonate with whatever was happening above. I stepped back, my shoes scraping against rough concrete, searching for something familiar in a moment that felt like fiction. The telescope stayed locked on the comet by itself. I had not touched it. I watched the mount adjust in tiny increments, tracking a target that was now clearly tracking me. A slow, deep pulse filled the air, more like pressure than sound. The skyline below flickered. A wave of lights dimmed across several blocks, then brightened again. Traffic signals went dark for a heartbeat, horns erupting in confusion. It was brief, so brief someone else might dismiss it as a power glitch. But not me. A faint static tingled along my forearms, raising goosebumps beneath my hoodie. The wind died completely. The air turned heavy, still, too still. Like the night was waiting for me to decide something. My phone lit up with that same silent icon. This time, instead of disappearing, it filled the screen with shapes I had seen through the eyepiece. Symbols. A language forming faster than I could comprehend. I backed up until my shoulder hit the mechanical housing of the rooftop elevator. I needed distance, but the elevator doors behind me refused to open no matter how many times I hit the button. The city noise below faded away again, swallowed by impossible quiet. I dared one more glance at the sky. The comet flared brighter, its tail bending. Not physically, optically. As if its light had turned into a beam twisting downward, narrowing its focus until it pointed at me alone. My heart pounded against my ribs. The night pressed closer, no longer an empty sky but a presence. I had never felt so small, so chosen, so trapped. I gripped the telescope like it was a lifeline. The metal vibrated beneath my hand. Not shaking, responding. Waiting for me to act. "What do you want from me?" My voice cracked but carried. The comet pulsed again. Closer, clearer, intentional. The roof felt less like a safe ledge and more like the threshold to somewhere else. A high-pitched ring filled my ears, faint at first, then sharp enough to make my vision pulse. The city below blurred, or maybe I stopped seeing it. The only thing that remained perfectly clear was the light from Atlas 3I, drilling down like a beam with a target it had already claimed. I stumbled forward, my hand catching the telescope again. The vibration inside the metal surged, traveling up my arm, spreading through my chest. My breath hitched, my heart skipped. Then a new rhythm took over faster, commanding, not mine. The phone in my pocket buzzed violently. I yanked it out. The screen showed a live view from the telescope, except I wasn't looking through the telescope. The comet's core filled the display, symbols spinning like they were alive, reacting to my pulse. I dropped the phone. It didn't matter. The light from the comet brightened further, burning white against the rooftop tiles. Dust lifted, shadows warped. The scene felt stretched between reality and something else waiting to replace it. I could move, technically, but any attempt to step away pulled me forward instead, like gravity had repositioned itself to favor the sky over the ground. The rooftop railings no longer looked like barriers, just temporary boundaries. My throat tightened. Panic clawed upward, begging to be acknowledged. No, not panic. Pressure, a command rising from inside me, pushing against bone. I squeezed my eyes shut, forcing air into my lungs. This isn't real, but the words had no weight. Not when the universe fought back. I opened my eyes again. The comet flared, a solid column of light shooting downward, stopping just inches from where I stood. It didn't hit the building. It waited for me. The wind returned in a violent gust, except every push came from behind, urging me forward. To step into that beam. To leave Earth. Terror and curiosity collided, and curiosity began to win. The edge of the rooftop no longer looked like a drop. It looked like a beginning. The light from Atlas 3I wrapped around me without touching, trapping heat against my skin, drawing me forward inch by inch until gravity felt like a suggestion instead of a law. My toes curled over the concrete lip. Wind roared, not from the city, but upward from the column of light waiting to lift me. For the first time, I realized the comet wasn't just calling me closer, it was preparing to take me. Every instinct in my body screamed to hold the railing, to slam myself back into the safety of the building. Stay grounded. Stay human. Stay alive. But my hand never reached for the rail. It hung suspended, fingers open, ready to accept something I could not see. My heartbeat no longer belonged to me. The pulse from Atlas 3, I dictated every thud, sinking me to its rhythm, erasing hesitation one beat at a time. Fear softened into awe. Terror softened into purpose. I stepped forward and the rooftop fell away. Not a fall, a lift. The beam held me effortlessly. My shoes hovered over the concrete, then over the void. The city shrank beneath me, windows and cars and people growing smaller, unaware that the sky had chosen someone tonight. Air rushed past my ears, but not loud, smooth, controlled. My hoodie fluttered, weightless. I reached out instinctively, as though I might grasp the light itself, and for a moment I swore I felt something like a hand reaching back. The comet's glow swallowed the horizon, becoming my entire field of view. A warmth surged through me, terrifying only in how right it felt. Then the rooftop was gone. The telescope was gone. Earth was already a memory rewriting itself behind me. There was only the beam, only the pull, only destiny.